Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I'm the Athletic Geek, and I am joined by T-Dog, Jerry Travelstead. This is a very exciting interview for me because not only is it the first time I've ever done an in-person interview, this whole thing started after the pandemic began and everything was done digitally, but I'm doing it in what I now consider to be the coolest principal's office I've ever been in my entire life. I would have tried to get in trouble to get to come into this principal's office, but first of all, Jerry, thank you for doing this.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to sit and talk about wrestling, and thanks for letting me be on.
No problem. So my normal question is usually, but it's been answered by just seeing this office. Were you a wrestling fan growing up? I don't think I need to ask anymore.
Yeah, it's easily to tell by looking around. I was from about 1984 or 5 when Hogan hit the scene is about when I started watching it, and of course fell in love with him, as you can tell by my light switch over there. And that was from when I was 7 when I got that one.
Really?
And so. So you can tell by looking around, I got the Hogan finger that I had since I was a kid, and a couple other things in there. A couple of my figures are from when I was a kid. My Bobby the Brain Heenan over there and stuff. And so I even have the very first book I ever got at a book fair. It was right there. It's a sticker book. If you see that Hulk Hogan one right here.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan, the one that says Hulk Hogan keeps the belt.
Yeah, that was my very first book I ever bought at a book fair at
That's
school.
Awesome.
So I still have that. So I'm a fan. I always have been a fan. Got out of it a little bit. When the Attitude Era started coming in, I was high school and just got out and went to college and did sports and stuff, and just I wasn't watching back then. So
it's kind of funny because the Attitude Era is like usually what got the Laps fan back, and that's like everybody,
I've had the enjoyment of. I got into it again about 2010, 11, and so then I found out about the Attitude Era, and so now I've been able to go back and watch it fresh as an adult, and it's been fun to watch. I'm sure being in the moment and going back and forth from WCW to WWE, Monday Nitro and Raw back and forth would have been more exciting than what I'm doing now. But I am catching up, trying to catch everything that I missed.
So just again, it's obvious that you were a Hulkamaniac.
Yes.
With everything here.
Yeah.
Who else did you really gravitate towards? I can tell you were a WWF guy.
Yes, definitely.
But I'm seeing in this room, I'm seeing some Flair, I'm seeing some Steamboat, I'm seeing some Horsemen.
Yeah.
Did you venture into the Jim Crockett Promotions WCW area?
I was whatever was on my 4 or 5 channels. So, but I love Ric Flair. I always have. Even though he was a heel, I still loved him. He was even back then before I knew the business as much as I do now. You could tell he was amazing in the ring and as a character. But Steamboat I loved. Andre the Giant was my dad's favorite, so he's sentimental to me as far as that goes. And Ricky Steamboat I always liked because he was a little guy, jumping off top ropes, which he wasn't the first, but he was one of the ones that kind of pushed it forward. Made it more popular. And Macho Man, of course. I just your typical Hogan's all-star wrestling cast that was on that little cartoon.
Right.
Those guys are the ones I liked. Even Sheik and Nikolai Volkov and all those guys.
So you didn't, as a kid getting into it, you didn't have the grudges towards the heels like a lot of us had.
I remember getting very upset when Hogan got beat, but that was the only time I ever remember really getting upset as a kid. Getting mad and. Was when Hogan got beat. He was my favorite, and so.
Fair enough. So you mentioned you drifted away from wrestling during the Attitude Era. You were playing sports. If you want to divulge, like what sports did you play? What kind of?
High school I played 4 sports. I did baseball, basketball, football, and track, and then I was pretty decent at football and baseball, and so I went to college to play both, and then ended up quitting and coming back home. And but I started lifting weights and doing all that kind of thing then, and just got married and just I wasn't watching it. I wish I would have been because I obviously missed some excitement there with Stone Cold and The Rock and all those guys, and but I don't know why it drifted. It's just. I don't know if it just got uncool for me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really have a reason for it. So
going back and rewatching the
Oh.
Monday Night War and the Attitude Era, who were I'm seeing the Stone Cold Steve Austin stuff, but who else really jumped out to you that made you just kind of go, dang, I wish I could have.
Oh, well,
I wish I could have been here for this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Stone Cold, Mick Foley, all the I remember the Undertaker when he first came out, at the Survivor Series '91, but all the different transformations of the Undertaker and watching Chris Jericho and all the stuff he did, and then going back and reading his biography and stuff, and he was pretty cool. And then you got Taker and Kane together, and that whole phenomenon. I mean, the Foley Taker match. I mean, I've watched that thing, the Hell in a Cell match, 25 times probably. It was just amazing. But Jim Ross, I love Jim Ross. I love listening to his stories. I've read both of his books multiple times. The first one, I have it on audiobooks. Of course, he reads them. And listening to him tell those stories, I mean, I could listen to it all day long, going all the way back to when he first got in the business, and So, but as far as the Attitude Era, it's still hard for me to watch, like with Triple H and Shawn Michaels and that group. I mean, they got pretty over the. Now, back if I'd have been that age watching it, if I'd have been 17, 18, I'd have loved it. Watching it now, I kind of cringe because, especially my job here as a superintendent, even when we have wrestling come here to the school, I'm scared to death the whole time, paranoid that one of these guys is going to do something that offends somebody,
Right.
And so watching D-Generation X and those groups, and holy smokes.
And I have been to a principal's office before for,
giving a little something.
Throwing a little something, throwing a little crotch chop or, saying you can, telling somebody they can take that ball and stick it straight up their candy. I have been to the principal's office.
I have to say, the only thing WCW that I care for at all, going back and watching it, I'm not so sure how it got so popular, and I wasn't. I mean, obviously the NWO and all that, but I don't understand how they even competed with WWE. Other than I like the mid card guys. I mean, you like the Guerreros and all those. I mean, they could go,
Right.
And that was fun to watch. And of course, always love Sting. I like the colorful Sting even better than the black and white Sting, but I like Sting nonetheless. But and DDP was pretty cool. But the whole NWO with Hogan, I look back on that and I just get irritated watching it. I'm like, it's not, they're just
not your Hogan.
They're just big names,
Right.
I just didn't care for it a lot, but I would have. Of course, I'm a WWF guy, and I probably always will be. But even though the product today is different and not as exciting to me, but it's just what it is. I'm a Vince guy. I definitely believe in Vince. Oh my gosh, that guy's a genius.
I know you're going to have a lot of my listeners maybe get turned off right now that you're a Vince guy, but if you like you can't deny what he's done.
I'm not saying I like where we're at right now with wrestling and WWE.
Oh no, but
from what he did from the start,
absolutely,
to what he brought it to, I mean, you gotta think he's done something
right. Right. Well, that's an interesting point. Do you think that kind of and I mean, it's open to interpretation. Everybody has their taste. Some people still like it, and that's fine. But do you feel that, like, maybe in the last few years, just kind of how the product got kind of stagnant? Do you think that maybe to a newer fan has people going, who didn't see the Attitude Era, who didn't see the Hulkamania era, people going like, this isn't that good. Why is he a genius?
Personally, he's changed. He was a wrestling guy to start with. I mean, he's always had the business side, but I think in the last 2 decades, or at least one, now he's a CEO. He's making decisions based on what gets his stockholders more money.
Right.
And they're it's watered down so bad, but they're probably making more money now than they've ever made.
Right.
But the wrestling
end
of it isn't what it used to be. I mean, they've gave up one for the other, I think. And so I would agree with people nowadays that say, oh yeah, it's not as good as product, and he's kind of lost his mojo. And I would agree with that, but he's doing it for a reason. I don't think he's doing it to benefit wrestling. I don't think he is. But he's doing it to benefit finances of all those people that he's got. Now Triple H, I think, still has some good ideas, and and with NXT and what he's done there. But
Triple H is still a wrestling guy for all.
Yeah, he's a wrestling guy. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. You mentioned just the sales and everything like that. I've mentioned on my live stream. It's like WWE's McDonald's.
Yeah.
Is there some things at McDonald's that under the right circumstances hit the spot? Of course.
Yeah.
But whenever you're going like name your favorite place to go eat, chain, local, or otherwise, with the exception of like a younger kids, very rarely do people say McDonald's.
Right. No, I don't.
Yeah, but
with WWE, I mean, you go to Mania, or go to any of their events, it's just mesmerizing how big it is.
Right.
And they've got the millions and millions of dollars to spend on it.
Right. So much so that like when you go to WrestleMania, you're doing everything. It's not even your WWE.
No, it's like going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
There's so much to do and see, and you're just going around and desensitized when you turn back on maybe an AEW, an ROH, or TNA, or whatever it was. Then you just look at that and you're like, wait a second. The wrestling's better, but your senses aren't necessarily brought out like WWE.
I don't know, because my one Mania trip.
Which one?
I went to 35 right before all this hit. I went to 35, and I enjoyed the weekend like no other. Yeah. The listeners probably are tired of hearing me talk about this weekend, but and I thought it was a good Mania. I enjoyed Mania except for the fact that it was 8 hours long and getting stranded outside the stadium.
What, is that New Orleans?
No, that was
Orlando,
New York.
New York. You went to New York?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't go to that. I went to Dallas, Orlando, and New Orleans all in a row.
But what was funny was like me and like all the All-In friends I made.
Yeah.
We were wanting to go there.
Yeah.
To essentially because we thought that the Ring of Honor Madison Square Garden show would be like All-In Part 2.
Yeah.
And that was when like the core of All-In said, we're going to go start AEW. So it's kind of like that Madison Square Garden show. Just kind of like, these 3 New Japan guys were good, but the rest of the card was underwhelming.
WrestleMania in Dallas, which going back would have been 35, 34, 32, was my first. So
right.
Obviously excellent, but I mean, you see Shane jump off Hell in the Cell, you see Stone Cold come out and with a New Day and
right.
And so it was nostalgic. And we actually ran into Mick Foley. We went to how there's all kinds of wrestling shows.
Oh yeah,
the weekend of.
I did 5 shows in 4 days, and as good as Mania was, like I remember like the local shows just because. I'm just an independent wrestling guy.
We go into this bar in Dallas, not knowing what we're doing,
right?
And we're watching, and right now Galloway's on there. All the guys that are on the card now were there at that show, and all of a sudden here comes Mick Foley, and he just out of nowhere. Well, they were giving a special award that night. Mick Foley was one that presented it, so we got to see him. We got to meet Stone Cold. We dumbed into that
awesome.
At Access. We all of a sudden at Access they're starting to set this ring up, and I'm like, and I noticed I recognized one of the Stone Cold's podcast furniture pieces. I'm like, I think this is going to be Stone Cold's podcast. So I'm like, get over here. So it was me and 3 other guys. Josh Plumley was one of them, and we are from me to you from Stone Cold the entire time of his podcast.
Nice.
So we dumbed into some great stuff, and so that WrestleMania was awesome. The Access was awesome. The other pro things that were going on were fun. Orlando sucked. It was the worst one. I hated Orlando.
Really?
Mania. I did not like it at all. Number
but you
one,
got Shane and AJ. That was so good.
Well, but that was a good match. But here's the problem: we were the very first human beings at that stadium that morning. And we were not, and they had it so screwed up. Orlando did. They opened this door and not that door, and we ended up not getting in till half the people were already in there. And then it's hot. Then it starts raining. Then it's hot.
Right.
And then they built this ramp that we didn't know about, and our seats were by the ramp, and so you can't even see the wrestlers hardly, And so it was just a bad experience,
I couldn't see the entranceway. At 35, so I just kind of like here, but I could see the ring perfectly.
Yeah,
like I could see all the action in the ring, but like I'm like, well, special entrances aren't going to be seen by me tonight.
Well, we learned our lesson. Those tickets we got there were not given, but we got through a WWE person, and we learned a lesson on that to get our own. But I didn't like the Taker thing at the end with Reigns. Of course, I hated Reigns at the time. I liked him.
Didn't we all?
Yeah.
I think anybody who listened to my live stream from when it started in 2018 till just recently, I'm kind of like, you'd think I despise Roman Reigns, like he took away my birthday and killed my dog with how bad I
He's better now.
He's
better nowadays, but I mean, back then I hated him.
Oh, yeah.
I had to be Tanker.
Force fed.
Gosh, it was so horrible. And then I went to New Orleans, and that was probably, as far as organization, the stadium was awesome. You got in, got out. I mean, it was, but we learned a lesson there, and so now we buy the first deck, first row, and we set camera side, hard camera side, dead center of the 50-yard line, and so we can see everything, and so that was a good mania. I liked that one a lot. So I'm looking forward to next year. We're gonna try and go back to Dallas.
I'm up in the air about that one because my next big goal is Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't know. It's kind of like
might cost some money there.
Yeah. But so if you see me at WrestleMania, you know that the Tokyo Dome's probably not happening.
Gotcha.
So you mentioned that you kind of got back into the product about 2010.
Yeah.
What kind of brought you back in? What was going on? What made you go like, oh, hey, this is still good?
Well, it wasn't that I watched wrestling. It was that I was here, a superintendent here at 204, and we were looking, always had my eyes open for fundraisers, and I always like trying to do unique fundraisers that aren't just going and asking people for cash, or whatever, selling, whatever, candy bars. And I came across my TV advertised for USA Championship Wrestling. If you'd like to come,
Bert Prentice, correct? Okay.
If you'd like to come, call us. And so I thought, they probably won't come to 204. But I called Bert, and he was all about it. And yeah. And we set up a date. I talked to the school board and said, this is a little unusual. I said, but I'd like to try it. And so we did. Had Bert come in, his group, USA Championship out of Nashville. Came up, did a show. It was an awkward night because if you've never seen a guy come in Speedos in your gym, most people are like, kind of taken back at first, but once you get past that and see the guys wrestle and interact with the crowd, and you see the dads screaming at the wrestlers, and the wives are looking at the dads like, what in the world are you doing? And they just laugh. It was a great time. So we had that happen. And then he wanted to come back again in the spring. That was the fall. He wanted to come back in the spring. And it went so well. I'm like, sure, why not? So he comes back in the spring and asks me to get involved in a match. And so, also after that fall show, he calls me up on the phone one day and says, hey, Jerry, I got a couple tickets. I got 4 tickets to Survivor Series. I was like, okay. He goes, would you like to have them? I'm like, sure, So we go to me, Sean Carter, who also helps with the wrestling, and our 2 boys. We went to Survivor Series. And it was
which Survivor Series was this?
I don't know the number, but it was Ms. Dow and Miz were together. Sting came on for the first time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the show itself to me was mesmerizing. It was when I was a kid. I loved Ms. Dow. Man, I loved the character. It was so hilarious. I mean, I was rolling. Then you had El Torito out there jumping around. My boys loved that, and then Sting comes out, and that was just like a blast from the past. I mean, like, holy crap, this is awesome. And so that's what got me back into watching it, was that Survivor Series. And then we just started, had those couple of fundraisers here. And then Sean and I and Josh decided we can buy our own ring, and do this ourselves and make more money and not be able to charge people, go to other schools and help them make money without costing.
Right.
Because going through USA Championship Wrestling, it wasn't super costly, but we did it a lot cheaper.
Right.
And then you come back to the WWE side of things, and my boy, who's now going to be a freshman, he's really into the theatrics of it all.
Right.
And I am too. And so with USA, it was no storylines. They just show up and wrestle matches, and no lights or fog or nothing. And so, so we're like, we can do this better. We can make this look WWE-ish.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And we bought flamethrowers and fog and lights and sound and, built backdrops. And, you'd have seen our gym set up for all that, I think. So that's how I did it. And started wrestling a few times here and there. And then Stride started about the exact same time.
Right.
That we started having shows here. And so Tyler and I got together, and he did Stride all by himself. I had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Other than I think the fact that we started doing the school shows and putting as much effort into it as what we did, that I think we helped each other.
Right.
I think Stride helped us obviously by having wrestlers available, but I think we did a pretty good job of putting on a show here, which led to going to West Frankfort, which led to going to John City,
Right.
and and Cessor and Christopher and all these other places, because they saw the quality and the care that we put into it, and so it's been a good team effort, and that's basically how I got back into it. So
I'm gonna go back to Burt Prentice a little bit. He's kind of an interesting character in the world of pro wrestling. A lot of everybody who's worked for Burt has a Burt story. And a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about Burt Prentice, from one side of the spectrum to the other.
You must have talked to some people.
Yes. So, what was it like for you personally? Dealing with Burt Prentice.
My relationship with Burt started off with I was a mark and he was a owner.
Right.
And so it started off with, and like I said, he gave me those Survivor Series tickets. He was real good to me, but I was making him money too. He'd come up here and we'd have 300-400 people in our show. And so he'd make a couple $1,000.
Right.
Where I know it shows in Nashville. I mean, I see him on Facebook. I mean, he's getting 30, 40, 50 people sometimes, on the weekends. And so I knew we were valuable to him. And so he was good to me. And he's never been bad to me.
Right.
But I can see where he treats wrestlers way differently.
Right.
And I've heard some pretty crazy stories,
right.
that I'm not going to mention on here.
No.
But
even some of the people I've interviewed have not on camera mentioned those stories.
No.
But
Burt's always been good to me. I could call him right now, and he would help me out trying to locate a wrestler or something like that. So, and like I said, I've always been thankful for Burt because he's the reason why I got back into this and why my boys have had so much fun doing it, and why our school has. I mean, I'm telling you what, it's hard to believe. You've been to the shows, but just to walk down our hallways, just to, I really believe wrestling has helped our overall atmosphere here. I mean, it helped me get into it with the kids. Even now, that match we had there tonight, I didn't do much.
Right.
But all those kids,
they
love it. I mean, I'm a superstar to them, and which I love.
And I like how you're the baby face to the kids, because there's probably some principals and teachers I've had that I wanted to see take stunners and rock bottoms and everything.
But I really think wrestling's played into that, even to the point where, like, this past year, I think I had 2 kids come to my office that were in trouble. We don't have kids getting in trouble. My 8th grade class had just graduated. Not one of those kids from kindergarten on had ever got a detention from me, and been in the office in trouble.
Right.
And it sounds crazy, but I think wrestling had a lot to start with that.
So we talked about Burt, and then you eventually found Stride and your relationship with Heath Hatton.
Yep.
Got to touch on a little bit. Tell me, like, how did you meet up with Heath? I've had Heath on here twice. He's a great guy.
Great guy. So Tyler and I met through Burt.
Okay.
Burt booked him for the shows that were here because he was a local wrestler and a good wrestler. And so that's the first time I met him, was he wrestled here under Burt. And then when Stride started up, we were wanting to do me and Sean and Josh thought we could put our own show on. So then, I saw the advertisement for Stride. And so basically I just called him one day and said, start talking to him and say, hey, we'd like to do this. And he was all for it. We had talked about it for about a year. I used Burt one more time and I was pretty unhappy with the way the matches were. I'm very particular.
Right.
Even with the wrestling shows, like, I want to make sure, number one, the wrestlers are aware that we're G-rated. We may get past G-rated every once in a while, but
TVY 7.
My kids come first, know, and so making sure that we're appropriate for them, and then I wanted there to be storylines, and I wanted to make sense why we're doing these things, and with Burt, it wasn't that way. It was old school wrestling where you show up and wrestle 3 matches and 4 matches and go home. Where Tyler was wanting to do the same thing. He was already doing the same thing, storylines and that kind of thing. So basically, long story short, I met him through Stride there at the mall, at Marion Mall, and we made a deal to come in, and he was going to run our show for us. And so from there, that's kind of the way it happened. And somehow I ended up, I'm not sure, I don't know if I asked to wrestle a match or if he asked me. I don't know how that went. But, I tagged him with Hacksaw through Burt.
Right.
here, Hexel and I tag teamed. I feel like I did pretty decent, with the athleticism of it and all that. And so from that, I don't know how Tyler started. I don't know. I think it was his idea. He wanted to put the stride belt on me, the legacy belt, because it had never been worn before, and they were doing a tournament for it. And he said, "Hey, I'd really like to have you be the first person to ever have it." And of course, I'm heck yeah, So I went down and trained for probably 9 months or so.
Tell me about your training.
Oh my gosh!
Because I had Kevin Huntsberger on here, one of my first guests.
Yeah, Kevin.
And I mentioned to Kevin, I said, like, you've got to live out the ultimate wrestling fan's fantasy of like, okay, you're a big fan, but hey, realistically, you're not going to get involved in wrestling. Right. It's just too much. And then eventually through just your own the job and the path you're on and where college took you, you get to somehow work in wrestling. And then from there you get to wrestle. You've pretty well done the exact same thing Kevin has.
Yeah, it's I've been blessed. I mean, the training side of it, you get into wrestling for the first time and realize, number one, that the canvas is hard as a rock. And I remember hitting the ropes for the first time. I just took off hard as I could, went into the ropes thinking it was like a bungee cord, and it was a steel cable. And I went to the ground, and my ribs were bruised, and I'm like, holy crap, how in the world do these people do this? And the first time I took a back bump, and I had to have Excedrin, it threw me for a loop, and I got all messed up my head, and it was a learning curve. And if you can't take pain, you do not want to be in a wrestling ring. If you can't take that bump, because it hurts. Everything you do in there hurts. Fortunately, with my background with football and stuff, it didn't. After I got used to the idea of it, it didn't bother me.
Right.
Even now, it hurts now because I only wrestle once a year or twice a year.
Right.
And so your body is not ready for that. So once you wrestle a match, you get hurt. But training was awesome. I mean, Tyler
he trained you?
Yeah, he trained me. Tony Flood did a lot for me. Tony Flood. Besides Tyler, Tony was the one that has done the most for me as far as wrestling goes. He did a lot of the small stuff with me, learning the locks and the, shoulder tackles and the basic stuff over and over and over. And Tony and I worked together quite a bit. And then he ended up being the first match that I had with Stride in the Legacy title. And I don't know if you got to see that match or not, but
unfortunately did not.
I mean, they did a thing where they ranked the matches, the best matches of all time in Stride, and that still is up there as to one of the best ones. And Tony is unbelievable in the ring. I mean, just smooth as can be and easy to work with and great heel. And so he did a lot for me as far as that goes, training wise. And it's hard. It's not easy. Juggling a job and full-time job and kids and trying to get down there twice a week to wrestle, and then also I took it serious in that I started lifting weights. See a big problem I see with a lot of indie people right now is they go and they train and they learn the moves and stuff, but they don't look like wrestlers. I mean, they don't. Not that they have to be Vince's guys, 6'6" and 300-pound ripped, but they're not in the gym really actually taking it as serious as what I think they could be. And I've told Tony multiple times, he didn't work out.
Right.
But I told him, man, if he would work out, he would be on the AEW and because he's that good. I mean, he does backflips off the top of steel cages with ladders, and hits it perfect. Smack perfect, gets up and keeps going, and he's just unbelievable. So I took it serious and started lifting weights, and actually that's what got me to where I'm at today and doing powerlifting, but.
I didn't know that. Tell me about powerlifting. I'm talking about powerlifting.
Oh, yeah. Well, being competitive all my life, just doing sports and stuff. I'm old enough now where basketball hurts too much. So because of wrestling, I wanted to look like a wrestler, So I started lifting weights a little bit at a time. 6 years later, found out about they have lifting competitions around here, And so I started. I do bench press only. It's the only thing I do. I don't do any of the legs.
You do legs in the gym, thoh, right?
No.
Oh,
no legs.
Skipped legs day.
Yeah, I'm a leg skipper. I still got thick legs, but I pulled a tore on my calf muscle.
Gotcha.
A few years back playing dodgeball with the 8th graders, And that was the most painful injury I ever had. So I'm like, I'm never doing that again. So, but now I do bench. So, of course, I'm 41. I'm in the Masters guys division. And I travel. I go about 3-4 times a year and do competitions. It's fun. I enjoy doing it. October, I'm doing the Masters Nationals. I'm hoping to set the world record for my age and weight. So we'll see how that goes.
What is the world record that you're shooting for, if you want to?
Well, right now it's at about 4:30, somewhere through there. And I've done 5:25 already, so I know I can do it. I just got to get to it. You got to be at a certain event to officially break it.
Right.
Because right now I hold the national record and the Illinois record already. So, but I'm hoping to do that in October so I can, it's just something competitive I like to do. It's fun.
Keeps that competitive.
Yeah. It keeps me going to the gym, starting to eat right. And I've lost about 25 pounds since December. I dropped down to the 198 class just to, because the lighter you are and the more weight you're, the more records you get, so that's what I did. So that's been fun. And it's all because of wrestling, really. I go back to it's because of Burt Prentice. I mean, he was the one.
Right.
As much of the stories I've heard, I've seen him treat people not right. I mean, I still thankful for that day that I met him and got started down this road. So,
we've talked a little bit about you going to WrestleMania, your experiences there. Just kind of keeping in the whole realm of fandom. What was your favorite match at a WrestleMania, or just a match you saw just at either in person or just at home, or what are some of your favorite matches?
The best match I've ever seen up close and personal was WrestleMania Orlando. The night before, we went to ROH, their big pay-per-view event, basically, and we sat about 6 rows in, tables, ladders, chairs match with the Young Bucks and the Hardys, and that was an unbelievable. The athleticism, the preciseness. They were jumping from ladder to ladder to the ropes to the tables. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was orchestrated. I mean, like a ballet. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
I'm not going to say the Young Bucks are my favorite team or my favorite wrestlers, but you've mentioned you're an old school guy. You have any idea how much joy it brings me to hear an old school guy go, Young Bucks match good, because they're so polarizing.
I like it. I see. I've been in the ring, so to tell you, to watch them springboard, I spent 3 hours one night trying to learn how to springboard. I'm pretty athletic. I about killed myself 5 times watching AJ Styles.
Right.
I mean, he's the most pure, smooth wrestler out there right now. I mean, every move he hits it perfect. He doesn't hit anything flaw. There's nothing wrong with anything he does. How at the end of a match, you still have the energy to be able to jump up on the rope and like nobody's business and springboard off of it. And
it's interesting you say that. Not that I think it's something that we should all be thinking about. It's like, yeah, you wrestle that match, you're tired, and then you still have to have the energy to do.
I'm blown up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I can't do. It's hard for me to do calf raises at the end of legs day, or hard for me to do burnouts on biceps and tricep pull downs.
And typically those guys are hitting their biggest moves at the dangerous moves at the end.
That's something that we as fans don't think about. It's like, they wrestle a whole match, now they got to hit this now when they're already spent.
If a fan has never been in the ring, I can promise you get in the ring, you hit the ropes 4 times back and forth. I guarantee you're going to need a drink and some oxygen, because you get blown up. My first match with Hacksaw, I was tag team with Hacksaw, so I was tag team even. I didn't have to do everything. He was in there, I was in there. I get in there, and those 2 guys were wrestling. One was Chris Michaels, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's a very experienced wrestler. And so they're like, "Oh, we'll call it in the ring." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know about this, because I'm not a wrestler. I don't know these what they're telling me to do." Well, I get in there, and I'm not joking you. As soon as I get in there, my family's sitting over here on the right. I got kids sitting over here on the left. Within 2 minutes, they had flip spots. I didn't know where I was. I was so turned around. I was blown up. I couldn't breathe. They're telling me stuff. I'm like, what did you say? What did you say? All of a sudden, they chuck me into the ropes. I'm going to hit the ropes. The guy on the outside knees me in the back. I'm like, oh, that's what he said. So I go straight to the canvas. He picks me up, whispers something else to me. I'm like, what? I didn't hear what you said. All of a sudden I look up, here comes double axe handle off top rope. Right in the forehead. I'm like, holy crap. I was so spent. I mean, it's just, it was, and I worked for it. I trained, I ran, jogged, did stuff trying to, but I'm going to tell you what, to watch Ric Flair be as, he wasn't in great shape. He was a little, he had a little fat on him, here and there, but to watch him wrestle a 60-minute match with Steamboat,
Right.
It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling how they have that stamina to go and go and go, because it's hard. It's very hard.
Okay, you mentioned that match. Any other ones you just want to point out?
Well, the Steamboat Macho Man was always a great match. My favorite match of all time is still Andre and Hogan, which I know is not a high-quality match necessarily, but you watch how little they did to get such a big,
right.
I mean, they did very, very little. So that goes to tell you,
especially with Andre's capabilities at that time,
was almost nothing. I mean, and I met Hogan a couple different times. I've been down there. I got a chance to work out with him at the gym down there in Florida. But
what's Hulk like when you meet him?
Super nice. Okay. He was to me. Of course, he's later in life now. It was just 2 years ago or 3.
Right.
So now, if you'd met him during the NWO era, he may have been a jerk.
Right.
But
I've always heard that about Hulk. I've heard there's a lot of people that didn't like working with Hulk, like the wrestlers, but then I've heard he will be, if you're a fan, he will bend over backwards to take care.
He did for me and my boy. I mean, we went down there and I actually got to lift weights with him down there. And, he told me, of course, Luke Williams, Bushwhacker Luke,
right,
is a friend, and so he's the one that introduced me to him, and of course he tells Hogan I'm a wrestler, and I'm really not, but anyhow, whatever, and so he tells he goes, hey, bud, I'll tell you one thing, do not, you need to get a finisher that doesn't kill you. He says, my finisher was the worst decision I ever made in my life. He said, all those leg drops just compressed his spine over and over and over, and he said it was one of the worst finishers I could have ever imagined. And so he's like, he goes, keep your boots on the floor, is basically what he told me. And, of course I don't. I like jumping off the rope. But anyhow, that was pretty cool. But no, Hogan, Andre, I loved. I mean, I like the new stuff too, though. I mean, I like the triple threat matches with Edge and Christian and the Dudleys and
right,
and all that. Anything that's entertaining.
Got quite the eclectic taste.
Oh, I like everything. There ain't nothing I can appreciate now, especially now that I've been in the ring. I can appreciate any good match that tells a story.
Right.
Anything that tells a story, I mean, I can appreciate because I know what it takes to. Number one, I am not a character. I'm not a very good. If I wasn't a principal here,
right,
I'm not somebody that stands out because I don't like to talk. I don't like,
right.
So the kids love me just because of who I am, not because I portray a,
right.
good heel or good face or nothing. So watching those guys and able to, make something of their character is I can appreciate.
So one of the times I had Heath on, I asked him about promoting and what it was like to try and book these big names, and he immediately said, I've talked to Jerry. I don't deal with that. So I've got you here now. How do you go about booking some of these big names? You've booked Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You've booked Abyss. Hacksaw. How do you get, what's that process like? And I mean, I'm not going to try and pry into finances, but what's the cost like? Take me through that process.
My first experience with it was, I booked Hacksaw. I booked him through Bert. And so Bert and I was in conversation back and forth with his costs and all that. I think he ended up costing me just under $2,000 once I paid his hotel and all that kind of stuff and flights and all that. But when I met Bushwhacker Luke Williams, this is no joke. I'm coaching basketball, me and Plumlee, and we're on a long bus ride home from somewhere. And I just happened to see him on Facebook, and I thought, I'll try to message him, see if he'll respond. He called me on the bus. I mean, it's like the New Zealand accent. I'm freaking out, I'm like, I put him on speakerphone because Josh was there with me, Plumlee, and so I'm talking to him. And so I ended up booking him. I think he costs, he's a little cheaper, but
right.
I think he was under $1,000. And so I booked him, and he comes in and is just the greatest guy. I could call him right now and he'll do it. He'll do an interview with you. No problem. Oh yeah. Really? Guarantee it. his experience in Puerto Rico and booking that territory, and just I didn't realize how vast his experience is with booking and Abyss. He pretty much created Abyss. I didn't know that, his character and all that. He worked with them for years before he was ever with TNA and all that stuff. But talking with him, and then once I got to know him, I mean, he would call me and just say, "Hey Jerry, what's up?" And so we would talk, but he gave me lots of phone numbers of guys that I could try to book, and so I got several from him.
Okay, you mentioned him giving you phone numbers. This is just something because for me, like even like just trying to reach out to some of the local guys, I'm like, well, here we go. Like, like I'm always nervous about just, cause, and then, so what's it like, just calling somebody and going, "Hey, Ricky Steamboat, I'm Jerry Travelstead, and I'd like for you to come to my show." Like, what is that process? Like, what is the feeling like?
You just have to have no, it's just one of those things. I'm just going to do it.
Right.
He doesn't know me. If he shuts me down, I don't care.
Right.
So, that's Richard Blood, is Ricky Steamboat. That's his actual name, Richard Blood. Well, Brian Wickens is Bushwhacker Luke Williams, right, his actual name. So, but I called Ricky, and he was great. I mean, talked to me for an hour.
Right.
I mean, just first phone call. Let's start talking, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to Ricky Steamboat, So he called. He was a little less than 2002, but for the price, he was well worth it. I would have paid way more,
Right.
So I talked to him, and I've talked to Diamond Dallas Page a couple different times. I talked to Jake the Snake a couple times about trying to come in, and I just got numbers from Luke is the one that really got me into a lot of these. Now I did meet the guy that books ROH. Can't remember his name.
Delirious?
No, before
Adam Pearce.
No.
Sapolsky?
No. Can't remember the guy's name.
Cornette?
No, not the booker. The guy that does their travel and does their private booking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That one I can't answer.
Yeah, I got into with him, so he got me James Storm, and I was supposed to have the dinosaur guy, the big guy that does the rapping. He's
Bruce Clay.
Yeah, Bruce Clay.
For Tyrus, yeah.
I was supposed to have him. Well, he backed out on me. He wasn't really. I got the drift. He wasn't a real good guy to deal with. But anyhow, and so James Storm
got some shooting some hot takes here in this episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, my experience.
That's fair. No, I'd say what you want.
Wasn't great. Well, and so.
Because I was going to ask you, so is there anybody that wasn't pleasant to deal with? You don't have to name names, but.
And so James stepped in at the last minute and said, "Yeah, I'll be there." And so I got him super cheap because, and he came in and was great. I can't believe he's not in WWE already. I can't believe he didn't go in previously as a tag team, because, their tag team was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so, but anyhow, he was good to deal with. Hacksaw was great. So you book these guys, you settle, normally they have their own price.
Right.
Normally it doesn't come off that. I have a couple guys have lowered it for me because it was a school kind of thing. Most of them, that's what they live for, and so that's what they do.
And you don't. I don't. You don't try and negotiate.
No, I don't offend them. No. I did try to negotiate with Ryback because he was like $5,000, and to me he wasn't worth $5,000. And I knew this is when WWE released him.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to get him for about $3,000. If I could get him for $3,000, I was going to do it.
Right.
But I couldn't get him down. I think we ended up 4,500 or 4,200 was the lowest he would go at the time. So because he was into that supplement stuff and anyhow. But so you book them, you come up with a deal, and then they send you their flight information where they fly in and out of, and it's your job to book their flights for them.
Right.
And so like with Luke's pretty easy going. He does Southwest. He don't care who he flies with, whether he's in the morning or afternoon. So. He was really easy, and so you book their flight for him. You book it since we're here. St. Louis is obviously the closest airport, and so then usually most of our shows are Saturday nights, and so what we'll do is I'll have them come in early Saturday morning. We'll go pick them up, bring them into town. I might get them a hotel room over here just to hang out for the day, and then after the show is over, I think I drive them back that night I'll get them a room that shuttles to the airport, and so. Luke one time, I've had him twice. He's such a good guy. I can't tell you how good a guy he is. I forgot to pay him. Ooh. We're halfway to St. Louis. I forgot to give him his money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, no problem. We stopped in Nashville, that little Nashville restaurant right there, and then one of my friends got it and brought it to us as fast as possible. And he was hitting on that girl, waitress. He's such a good dude. He told his stories are pretty dang good too. And then Hacksaw, of course, he told me the story about him and Sheik getting pulled over. that was good. I mean, but so that's pretty much how you do it.
Right.
I've not dealt with anybody that's been terrible. I'll tell you, of course, he's dead now. But Lawler's son,
right?
He was not Brian
Christopher.
Man, he was not good to deal with. He was not fun. And Rikishi was kind of scary too. I was gonna have him and Rikishi at the same time.
Right.
Well, Brian ended up backing out on me, saying he needed a ride here because he didn't have a car, and I'm like, I'm not coming to Nashville to pick you up. And once he backed out, Rikishi kind of got upset because he was backing out. It wasn't with me, heat with me. It was heat between the two of them.
Right.
And so he ended up backing out because I had them both booked to come.
Did you get a replacement, or was it just kind of?
Yeah, probably I did. I don't remember who it was. It was either Luke or one of the guys we've had, Steamboat or somebody.
Right.
I don't remember who the replacement was, but those guys you deal with individually. Like Diamond Dallas, you deal with individually. His price is a little high, and rightfully so because he's doing all this yoga. He doesn't need to work for $1,000.
Right.
He don't need to do that. Heck, I talked to Taker's agent when I found out WWE was letting him do stuff. It was like $25,000 an hour, 2-hour minimum. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, and Flair is the same. Flair's probably.
That's probably because anytime there's a convention with Flair, it's kind of like everybody else. The standard rate's like, it's like.
I've heard stories on Flair.
40, 40, and 60, and Flair's like 100, 200.
Right. Well, I heard a story that Flair he booked, but he will call you like the day or two before and ask him want more money than what he originally.
Really?
That's what I've heard. I've never had that experience, but I heard that.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And at that point, you're hamstrung because
You've advertised.
You've advertised it. You're nothing compared to him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no contract signings or nothing like that.
Right.
So it's just word of mouth. Like this time, I got. Well, I don't know if I told you or not, but Demolition's coming in October, and so
sweet.
I booked them probably 3 or 4 days ago. Talked to Bill Eddy back and forth, and so I got both of them coming for our October 16th show. They're going to be here, face paint and all. So
nice.
So that'll be fun.
Definitely be in if you're in the Southern Illinois area, or even if you're within reasonable driving distance. I would highly suggest we all come to that show.
Yeah, Demolition's going to be good. Bill Eddy's a great guy. Met him a few times at the WrestleCons and stuff.
Right.
And so Action Smash will be here, and they were easy going, easy to book. They're not going to wrestle, but they're going to do something in a match. They're getting up there in age to be doing.
You'll be able to get your Demolition action figures signed, I'm sure.
If you got them.
Yeah.
You try.
Well, you have until October to negotiate a good price on eBay for one.
Gosh, if you get them in the box, they're about $400-$500.
I was just going to look for the more recent ones.
Yeah. Well, I ended up buying.
I'm a figure guy, so.
Well, I got a magazine, 1991 or 2, and they were on the cover of the wrestling magazine. I got that, and so I had them sign that for me. But and they weren't overly priced.
Right.
We can't afford overly priced.
You can't afford an Undertaker. I mean, it's
no. Now, if Flair would have been 5,000 or 10,000, I'd probably tried to find the money to get him here. And of course Hogan's, I'm sure, up there. I've never asked him. I don't want to insult him either. So,
right.
Because the times I've met him, I don't. I know we're not.
It's funny. Like you've met him and you're like, well, you could maybe ask him and see if he'll work with you, but you don't want to insult him. It's kind of like the one thing, and I learned this whenever I reached out to Kevin, because when I first started this project, Kevin was one of the first people I really reached out to, but he was also somebody who I wasn't a friend with.
Yeah.
I met him, but I wasn't close with him. I'm like, well, here's a guy that I'm kind of half stranger with, and he was cool. I'm like, but he's friends with a good friend of mine. I should have name dropped that. And I'm kind of like, I don't know how to name drop. I told him, I'm like, I should have told you this, but I don't know how to name drop.
Well, I email and text these guys sometimes I will say, Luke Williams is a friend of mine, he can vouch for me kind of thing. He does. He'll call somebody and say, hey, Jerry's calling. I talked to Brutus Beefcake, and I had him almost set up to come about 2 years ago, but something fell through on that.
I've heard stories about Brutus.
Yeah, and I met Brutus at WrestleCon, and he looks interesting.
So you do. We're really all over the place, but when you did WrestleCon at the New York, or I did New York, but you did Dallas,
Orlando, and New Orleans. We did it.
So you do those rather than Access.
Do both.
You do both. Wow.
Mm-hmm. We normally do both.
Whew, that's.
Yeah. Well, we go for the full meal deal.
Right.
No, we did not do NXT at night.
Gotcha.
Hall of Fame. I sit and watch it on my computer. We sit in a bar and watch it on TV or whatever. But
NXT was one I was really happy that ROH and NXT were on different nights because I'm like, I don't really.
No, we did do the ROH one, which I told you about.
Right.
I'm glad we did because that was excellent. But so the WrestleCon, it's growing so fast. Like the last one I went to in New Orleans, Stone Cold was there, which was amazing.
I went there to meet the Japanese talent because they booked I'm a Japanese wrestling. They booked Jushin Liger and Ultimo Dragon, and they had Great Muta, and they had.
I'm gonna tell you what, Great Muta. To me, going back and looking at all the old stuff, if you go back and look at Great Muta, he was probably one of the most underrated wrestlers
Absolutely.
of all time. He could do more in the ring than a lot of these guys can nowadays.
Right.
He was unbelievable. But
the big one for me was Shawn Michaels, my all-time favorite.
Oh,
I'd already bought my ticket, and then they're like Shawn Michaels, and I'm just like,
yeah,
credit card, pre-order.
Well,
click.
Here's the thing. I'm standing at WrestleCon Dallas, me and my 3 buddies, and here comes Shawn. He's just kind of walking right. He's not a very big dude. He's smaller than me, and he's got boots on. He's got his pant legs shoved in his boots. Right there, just talk to him. I didn't get on. I didn't, you don't want to ask him for an autograph because that's what they're there about.
They're selling, though.
They're selling.
Yeah.
So I just talked to him. He was super nice.
Yeah.
And then funny story, Lanny Poffo was walking past, and I don't know why my brain was not working. I said, "Hey, Randy." I'm like, my buddy hit me. That's not Randy. That's his brother. Like, oh my God, I just called him Randy. But
Lanny's I met
Lanny's super nice.
Lanny at Starcast before All In. He was there. I mean, actually, it got to be part of All In with Jay Lethal. And I remember just being really friendly, in that voice. He's like, so where are you from? And I mentioned where am I? He's like, okay. And I'm like, well, we're about 50. The people of Tamaroa, and oh, okay, I know Tamaroa very well. I know Carbondale very well too, and I mentioned all these places. Yeah. So that was the big thing. Is I'm this far away from Tamaroa and Carbondale, and that's he's like, oh, I immediately know exactly what you're talking about.
Because his dad ran this area for a long time, back in the early 70s. So, but WrestleCon, we had a good, funny experience there in New Orleans. I took some other friends that went with us, and one of them was he's probably about 9 at the time, 8. Well, the Boogeyman was there. And so WrestleCon set up into aisles. So all these wrestlers have tables, and they're in 3 big aisles. And so we see the Boogeyman, and immediately this kid I was with, I could tell he was not liking that. Well, the Boogeyman caught wind of it. He saw him. Mm-hmm. He saw that he was scared. And he freaking chased us. He chased us up and down these aisles. Oh, he was screaming.
You can't. The people listening cannot see my jaw drop right now. What the heck?
It was unbelievable. I ran as fast as I could. We busted open, got out of those doors, out of the WrestleCon, and sorry about that.
That's okay.
We got out as fast as we could, and of course he wouldn't go back. He wouldn't go back to WrestleCon. He was scared to death, So
poor kid.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap.
Hey, you take the Boogeyman and go, don't be scared, buddy.
Yeah. No, man, he was in full character. Yeah, he chased us out of there. Yeah, we met Goldberg at that one. That was the same one. That was a big WrestleCon that year.
I
mean, Stone Cold alone was unheard of to be able to get.
That's part of the reason why I might be considering the Dallas trip, because it's he's going
to do something.
Stone Cold might be there, and then
Taker.
I've met Taker once. I'd like to meet him again. I bet he was at World Chicago. I went up there, just got the pro photo op. That's the only thing we could afford to get in a timely manner. But got the handshake, the hello, and the picture. That was good enough for us. But for a much smaller scale, big Stan Hansen fan. And I'm thinking Stan Hansen might be.
I met Stan Hansen once.
Yeah, I'm a big. Again, going kind of back to the being a fan of Japanese wrestling.
I like Bruce Brody. He was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
I see him wrestle in person. I saw Andre wrestle in person, but it was ridiculous. It was when they were putting.
Was it the infamous Warrior story? Because I hear everybody I know who's a wrestling fan from in St. Louis, Southern Illinois, Kentucky always say like, "Yep, went to wrestling once. Andre Giant wrestled the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior hit him.
Yeah.
Andre went down.
30 seconds is over with.
I went up and got a beer and got back down, and the match was over.
Yeah.
And anytime I mention I'm a wrestling fan, they tell that story. They're like, "That's why I don't like wrestling anymore."
Yeah, and Ultimate Warrior, I loved Ultimate Warrior. I mean, I liked him a lot back then. Before,
right.
The Hogans and all that. So I was a fan a little bit, but now I look back as a person that's been in the ring, I'm like, he couldn't do anything. He was just a character,
Right.
He went, shook the ropes, but he made money doing it. I mean, how can you blame the guy? I mean, he came in with Sting,
Right.
They were tag team when they first came in. Sting wasn't very good either to start with, but he was better than Ultimate
Warrior. So, I mean, looking back on everything we talked about, seeing this room full of stuff, seeing all these cool things, knowing that you not only have you wrestled, you've been a champion.
Yeah.
When you look back and think about all that, like, what does that mean to you as just the wrestling fan, the person that went out and bought these figures and these belts and the Hulk Hogan light switch?
Yeah, I would get emotional if I think about it too long, because it's been a fun ride. I mean, I don't know if you know, before COVID, I wrestled with my son. My two sons and daughter were in a match with me.
I didn't know that.
Here, yeah. It got rated the top 5 matches in Stride history.
That's awesome.
Garrett Turner, Dexter.
Right. We've had Dexter on the show.
Yeah,
he's
Dexter,
a really cool guy.
Oh, he is one of the great guys in wrestling. He has been one of my favorite guys. I can't say enough about him. That match with my kids. My daughter's, an acrobatic person,
Right.
So we went and practiced quite a bit, and she did a hurricane DDT to him, jumped off insecurity. I mean, she did all the backflips in the ring, and then my boys got in, and my older boy, which he wasn't very old at the time either, he did a 619 on Garrett.
Nice.
Garrett plays it off. My 7-year-old at the time did a swanton bomb off top rope onto him. I mean, it was just the crowd was going nuts. I mean, they loved it, and it was all Garrett. Right. The entire match was Garrett because, the kids are pretty fairly athletic for kids,
right.
And weren't scared of doing it. But Garrett's the one that made it all happen. So, but thinking about everything that's happened in the last 6 years here, and I would get emotional if I thought too much about it because, growing up, my dad and I loved watching wrestling together, and so he passed away right before I won the Legacy title. And if you see my shirt there, my logo you're using on that podcast, my buddy drew this for me. Of course, you see me there. This over here to the left is my mom and dad. This is my family, my wife and my 2 boys and daughter right here on the right. And then this is me and my best buddy growing up, who passed away when we were 16. But we watched, well, it wasn't Raw back then. It was Monday Night Wrestling,
Right.
We watched it every Monday night. So that's a shirt design and that I got. But, this whole thing means a lot to me. I mean, I love it. I even getting in the ring the other night, I'm getting to the point where it takes a toll on your body. I can't imagine actual wrestlers, that's been doing this their whole life. I mean, I don't know how to explain it because they know they're going to have a good chance of being somewhat crippled as a 60-year-old and 70-year-old. Your bones, your joints aren't going to work right. If you've hit that canvas as many times as they've hit it, you're going to be hurt. I'm watching Axe out here do a back body drop on the concrete.
Right. Ooh, yeah.
I'm like, holy smokes. And Axe is a pretty conservative dude,
Right.
He knows he's boots to the floor kind of guy, old school, brawl, tell a story. And I saw him do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, Axe, what are you doing, dude? And their bodies have to be broken down. But to me, this has been huge. Getting to come out with the kids screaming. And Jake Hagney, I don't know if you know Jake or not. He was my manager there.
Okay, yeah.
That's Keith Hagney's son.
Gotcha.
At the high school. And, he's, I don't know, he's, I don't know he was scared to death they were going to attack him that night. He was
Right.
afraid so I had to keep telling him, Jake, they're not going to attack you. You'll be fine. And, and he called Tyler and said, are you sure they're not going to come after me? And so,
but I get it. Yeah.
but he got to get in and do the 1, 2, 3, and and just to see him how much fun he had. That's what makes it fun.
And then at the end, where you got to see the myriad of stunners with the kids, and it's something that I'm glad these kids are getting this, because it's something that when I was their age in 98, 99, 2000, God, I would have. You mentioned, kind of ties back all these. This makes the school better. The people are more well behaved. I would have definitely stayed out of trouble. For you can get in and give this guy a stone cold stunner when we have wrestling at the thing. I homework. Yes, homework. Homework's done. Studying.
Well, I walk down the hallway now, and I'll have 3 or 4 kids if I walk down, give me a fake leg kick. Because they know how to do it. We teach them what we're doing. And I'll walk up to them and kick them. Pretend like I'm kicking them. And they'll go down to the ground and act like they're hurt. And, it's fun. I mean, it's just
the kids really respond to the wrestling from you.
They set a ring up for us every time. The kids do. I mean, I could probably. We haven't set it up since COVID, so this group probably couldn't do it by themselves. But this year's freshmen, I could have sat back and they could have set the whole ring up by themselves, because they loved it and they watched and they paid attention and they really enjoy it. And some of them, it's dorky and corny.
Right.
I get it. I'm a nerd. I understand that. I'm not overlooking that,
but that's what makes it great.
It is. It's what makes it fun. I mean, I love it. I love everything about it. Tyler's been unbelievable with Stride. Tony Flood would be a good one for to have on there. He's about done, I think. I think October's going to be a real good show, though.
I'm definitely again, anybody. I know I got some listeners from all over the country and some foreign countries, but if you're in the area, definitely check out Stride and definitely check out this show with Demolition. And
they're going to do a 1-hour meet and greet prior.
Okay.
And so they'll do that in the old gym, and then normally we sell. I think normally it's $10. We charge for that, and then the seats, front rows, are normally.
I know with Steamboat, I remember getting the ticket and the meet and greet, and I'm like, I've paid a lot more for a lot less in the past.
Yeah. And there's not a bad. Our gym's tiny, so
right.
There's not a bad seat. A lot of the Stride followers will call me immediately and get those seats booked up.
Right.
Of course, I've got families here that, as soon as they know, they're this show here the other night, it was completely 100% donated. Stride guys worked for lower than normal, and then I had donations from families and businesses that we were able to get that for free, and so I was really proud of that, being able to do something COVID free for free,
right.
So it was fun.
It's really well put together too, especially with the concessions, because we were running behind. It wasn't going to get somewhere to eat, and they're like, I gotta have full concessions, and it was good concessions. So it's like that was.
I've got a crew here of about 3 or 4 families that help me with everything, and they're into wrestling, and so they've always helped with the wrestling stuff, and of course they were helping with concessions that night. And our show in October, we're going to do were you here for the last pumpkin themed one we had, Halloween themed one? It was pretty good, but we're going to do that again this time. It's going to be decked out in there. We're going to try some new stuff. I think the matches, Tyler's really putting together quite a storyline.
And not something else, about that show is they kept the stories going. I mean, there was some people that don't normally come to the shows. I'm like, well, this guy had this guy does this, and this guy, his thing is this. So we had to kind of catch him up. But it was kind of it was a good show for if someone's just from Pinckneyville wants to come on in here, and then if there's somebody who wants to, somebody who follows Stride who will make the trip, they'll be able okay, they're not the canon is still going on.
That's what Tyler's doing with our shows. It's not really pay-per-views, but he's kind of using them as the bigger show.
Right.
The culminating a story maybe, or doing something that the blow-off show or something like that. He's really done a good job of. And he's also done a great job of incorporating me,
right,
Plumley. Who neither one of us do a lot of wrestling,
right,
and being able to come up with a story that makes sense as to why we'd be in the ring. One time it was me and my PE teacher, Miss Shanefeld. We wrestled a mixed tag match, against Tony Flood, and at the time it was his wife. We wrestled them, in a match, and he would have me come in for a stride show here or there to make an appearance just so that the stride people, okay, it makes sense
Right.
why they're doing this, So
Right.
I'll still do that now. I mean, I know they're doing the minor show in September, and I think I may be doing something in that at the minor stadium, but just to make it make sense, because it's important to Tyler that it makes sense.
Right.
I mean,
that's the one thing.
Kevin Huntsberger doesn't get in the ring just to get in the ring.
Right.
It has to have a.
And that's something I've really given him a lot of credit for, is
Yeah.
how much he's done storylines, because I remember talking to all the old AAPW guys, which I loved AAPW. That was my first local wrestling, but it's just kind of like, they could have just had a few more stories.
Yeah.
If they could have stuck with,
Right.
understood that people come to the, yes, you got your new fans, but they understood people come.
I'll tell you, weaker wrestlers, the ones that aren't as good at selling themselves, if you've got a storyline for them, they don't have to sell themselves as hard.
Right.
In one night, you don't have to sell yourself as the heel or as a baby face in one's 5-minute period before the match starts, because it's already been set for you. Here's the storyline. It's already been going. And so I come in, I'm a weaker character.
Right.
I mean, I don't have to go out there and get the crowd pumped up. They're already ready to go.
Right.
They're already. I don't have to do anything.
You say you're a weaker character, but yet if you would have been out there and didn't sit in the parking lot,
right, but it's only because of who I am with these kids.
I was just joking. I was jokingly acting like I was rooting for Bud, because he's a and there was a little kid, and I'm sure he went to school here, just shot me a look like, I'm gonna.
Well, I'll tell you what, we were in Summersville grade school one time, and me and Tony were wrestling. Tony Flood. It was a really good, one of my best matches I ever had. And the ending was Tony hits me with. Tony tries to hit me with the chain.
Right.
He doesn't do it. I get him in a TKO, finish him. I'm on top of him. When the referee's counting to 3, Tony takes the chain and stuffs it in my pants. And so when I come up for the win, the referee there's a chain hanging out of my pants. Well, then Tony tells me that he hit him with a chain. So the referee reverses the decision. Kevin Huntsberger gets chased down he's in the bathroom using the urinal, and there's a guy in there that is irate that I had just gotten cheated in there. I mean, Kevin goes, that's the first time I think I've ever been assaulted in the bathroom. But the guy was so mad that the referee turns around. That's what makes it fun.
Right. That's why people keep coming back.
Yeah.
Is there anything, you're promoting the show. Just say it real clear so anybody might know. It's October the what?
October 16th.
October 16th.
Yep, call 357-2419 for tickets. Haven't really set prices or nothing yet. We're still several months away. But also, one thing I'd like to promote is, we're not getting out in wrestling as much as we have in the past. But if you have a nonprofit that needs a good fundraiser, I work hard at promoting this one at any of our schools. I mean, if you work hard, you can make $5,000 or $6,000 on a show. If you book it correctly, if Tyler will book it correctly.
Right.
I mean, if you promote it correctly and have an organization or group of kids selling tickets and that kind of thing, you can have a successful. And not only do you make money, like I've said multiple times here in this interview, it brings your community together. I mean, I can't tell you how much I feel like wrestling has helped us as a school district just be on the same page,
right?
Appreciate each other, kind of thing. And so, if you're interested in that kind of thing, get a hold of Tyler at Stride or Heath Hatton at Stride Pro Wrestling, or even give me a call here, and I'll kind of give you some advice of what I've experienced over the time. So, but I like doing the nonprofits. I mean, that's we've raised. I'd say closer to $50,000 for people. We've built locker room here. We've paved our parking lot concrete. We put this sign out front here with the flag poles. I mean, we've done it with wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to believe, but it's the truth.
It's something that, again, if only 20 years ago, whenever I was this age, all this stuff was happening, we would have had so much more.
And here's the thing about a wrestling show. Like I tell my board, okay, we're having a wrestling promotion. And yes, some of our own people are paying to come. But you've got people all over Illinois bringing money into Pinckneyville, bringing money into our school. Other Marion and Carbondale and wherever else they're coming from, they're bringing their money from those places into our school and spending it here. And so, I'm not forcing them to. I'm not going up to the door and say, hey, will you buy a candy bar? If you want to come watch wrestling, come watch it. If you don't, okay, it's okay. I'm not going to be upset.
Right.
And so it's a unique fundraiser to where the point where people are coming because they want to come.
Right.
Not because they feel guilty that they need to come to support the school. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and we end up giving away, I do the sponsorships here too, where a business will give me $100 and I'll pass out 10 tickets to kids that probably may not be able to afford it,
And that's good.
Yeah. We end up, normally I hand out about 100 tickets for free to kids.
That's good.
So.
And do the other schools get involved with this, or is it?
They don't really. The high school did one time.
Right.
We did Strigo Steel in the Ville up there. That's when Kevin wrestled. It was a great match, but we went up there. We did all cage matches, and so they that was their football team and track team did that up there, and so of course me and my friends here we pretty much ran the whole thing up, and then Tyler did all the booking, but no, around here not really. And I don't know how successful. We do ours here, and so I don't know. It's one of those things that you don't want to do it all the time,
right? If we did every month, people would be like, I don't want to go to this one this month. We'll wait till October when demolition's there.
We do it once or twice a year,
right?
And that's our thing that we do. So we try to do one in the spring, fall. Usually, we really liked this one. This is the second time we did the schools out. We may keep that theme going, at the end of the school year, doing one every year. So then we do a fall one. So
into school, beginning of school.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir, for your time today. Appreciate you, and definitely look forward to coming back over here. And I definitely appreciate all you've done to just have entertainment like this in the area and in the communities. Fun. And
been fun.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Thank you, sir.